If you wake up at 3 in the morning and cannot fall back asleep, you assume something is wrong. You start Googling symptoms. You spiral into anxiety. By 4 in the morning, you have diagnosed yourself with 3 separate disorders. Here is the thing. That assumption might be completely historically wrong. For most of human history, people did not sleep in one block. They slept in 2, and waking up in the middle of the night was not a malfunction. It was normal. It was called first sleep and second sleep. You would go to bed a couple of hours after dark, sleep for roughly 3 to 4 hours, then wake up naturally, not in panic, just calmly. Stay awake for an hour, sometimes 2, then drift back to sleep until morning. This is documented across cultures, across centuries. References appear in ancient texts going back to Homer. Roman authors wrote about it as a matter of fact. Medieval literature is saturated with it. A French physician in the 16th century actually recommended that couples conceive children during the waking period between sleeps because people were naturally more relaxed and alert. And what did people do during this waking window in the middle of the night? Everything. They pray. The quiet hours between midnight and dawn were considered the most sacred time for communication with the divine. They thought about their dreams, which were taken much more seriously than we take them today. They had sex. They tended the fire, adding logs to keep the heat alive. Farmers checked on livestock. Mothers nursed infants. Some people visited neighbors. Just people moving through the dark streets between the 2 sleeps like it was perfectly normal because it was. It was not insomnia. It was not a disorder. It was just the night doing what the night does, existing in phases the way it always had. The reason this pattern collapsed is almost certainly artificial lighting. Once you can keep a space brightly lit well into the late evening with gas lamps, then electric lights, you push your bedtime later. Your total sleep time compresses. The natural gap disappears, and suddenly waking up in the middle of the night feels wrong. So if you have ever woken up at 3 in the morning, felt completely thumb and strangely clear headed, laid there in the dark, thinking about your life for an hour, drifting peacefully asleep, congratulations. You are not broken. You are, in the most literal sense, prehistoric. Your body remembered something it was never supposed to forget. But to understand why we slept this way, we have to go back further. Before we had fire under control, before we had tools worth bragging about, early humans were dealing with a terrifying problem. Half of every single day was in complete darkness. And in that darkness, things hunted. Lions, hyenas, leopards, saber-toothed cats. Almost all the major predators of the ancient world are most active at dawn, dusk, and during the night. When the sun went down, early humans went from being the hunters to becoming a reasonably nutritious snack option for something with much better night vision. So what did you do? You grouped up. You got somewhere enclosed, somewhere defensible. Caves were premium real estate, not because early humans had a particular fondness for damp stone walls, but because a cave is a space with only one entrance. You can put your back to the rock. You know exactly what direction the danger is coming from. Groups slept together in these spaces, close enough to share body heat, close enough to hear each other breathe, close enough that if something came in the night, you would know immediately. And then somewhere around 400,000 years ago, everything changed. Fire. The moment early humans gained reliable control over fire, the entire dynamic of the night shifted. Fire creates a boundary, a circle of light, a wall between you and the dark that is purely psychological, and yet somehow completely real. Most large predators will not cross into firelight because they evolved to hunt in darkness. An open fire is a disruption, an anomaly. Sitting next to a fire, you were safer from predation, not through strength or speed, but through light itself. But fire did not just protect early humans from predators. It fundamentally transformed what human beings were. Think about what happens around a fire. You cannot really be productive. You cannot read. You cannot write. What you can do is sit, look at each other, actually be present with the people around you. Researchers who study modern hunter-gatherer societies like the Juhonsi of the Kalahari Desert or the Hadza of Tanzania have found something remarkable. Daytime conversation in these communities is mostly practical. Who is hunting where? What needs to be gathered? Logistics. But nighttime conversation is completely different. At night around the fire, people tell stories. Long, elaborate, emotionally rich, morally layered stories. Stories about ancestors. Stories about creation. Stories about what it means to be brave, to be generous, to be a person worth knowing. Roughly 80% of all nighttime campfire conversation in hunter-gatherer societies is storytelling, compared to only about 6% during the day. During the day, logistics. During the night, stories. Every single evening for tens of thousands of years, human beings sat around fires and narrated the world to each other. They were doing exactly what we still do with streaming platforms, with novels, with every film ever made. The campfire was the cinema. The storyteller was the screen. Stories are how culture transmits itself. Stories are how values get passed down, how history survives, how identity is built across generations without writing, without books, without any external storage medium at all. Stories around the fire at night were the hard drive of human civilization. Let us go even further back. Early Homo sapiens did not have beds, but they also did not just flop down on bare rock. Archaeological evidence from Border Cave in South Africa suggests that as far back as 200,000 years ago, humans were constructing deliberate sleeping platforms. Carefully assembled layers of vegetation, grasses, leaves, selected plant materials. And beneath those layers, researchers found ash. Not accidental ash, but ash deliberately spread under the sleeping area. Because ash repels insects, takes mites, fleas, someone 200,000 years ago figured out that if you put a layer of ash under your bed, the bugs do not come. They were doing pest control before the concept of pest control existed. They were using chemistry before they knew what chemistry was. Someone woke up, itchy, looked at the ash from the fire, made a connection, tested it, confirmed it worked, and taught it to other people. That is the scientific method running in a prehistoric human brain applied to the problem of sleeping more comfortably. Now here is the part that really puts it in perspective. The night was not only about survival and sleep. For virtually every ancient culture on Earth, the night was the most spiritually charged time in the entire cycle of existence. The sun, the thing that made the world visible and warm and alive, died every evening. It went beneath the horizon. In the cosmology of countless ancient peoples, it literally descended into an underworld and had to fight its way back. Every sunrise was a victory. Every night was a vigil. The ancient Maya built entire calendar systems around the movements of celestial bodies that were only visible at night. Their cities were architecturally oriented to align with specific star positions and planetary movements. Maya priests conducted specific rituals in the deep night hours, making offerings to ensure that the sun would complete its journey through the underworld and rise again. From our perspective, this seems like mythology. From their perspective, it was infrastructure maintenance. The sun kept rising. The rituals clearly worked. The Polynesian navigators did something that, when you fully understand it, is almost impossible to believe. Without instruments of any kind, no compass, no sextant, no GPS, no charts, they navigated the largest ocean on Earth. They crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific in wooden outrigger canoes, finding tiny islands that represent pinpoints on an oceanic expanse larger than all the world's land mass combined. They did this primarily at night. They had memorized the rising and setting positions of hundreds of individual stars for different times of year, different seasons, different latitudes. They read ocean swells. They tracked the behavior of birds which fly toward land in the evening. They read cloud formations that tend to form over islands. They felt the temperature of the water with their hands and feet. The night sky was their navigation system, and it was more sophisticated in certain respects than anything we carried before GPS. One more detail that tends to land hard when people hear it. Iron Age metal workers in what is now Zimbabwe, working roughly between 200 CE and 1900 CE, deliberately chose to fire their forges at night. Not because they did that early, but because during the day the sunlight wire, the helpful changes time that tell you the temperature. When you are working, iron color is everything. Red heat orange, heat yellow, white. Each stage meaning something precise about the metal's state and what you can do with it. At night you could see those colors with perfect clarity against the dark. They were using darkness as a precision instrument. So let us bring all of this together, because there is a real conclusion here, not just a collection of interesting facts. When we ask what ancient humans did at night, we imagine something small, something scared. People huddled on rocks, waiting passively for morning, enduring the dark rather than inhabiting it. Night has an absence, the gap between days, the time when nothing happened and nothing counted. But that is exactly backwards. The night was when humans told the stories that became culture, when they slept in two natural phases and woke in the middle to think, to pray, to connect. When they held each other warm against temperatures that would otherwise kill them. When priests read the sky for messages from the divine. When navigators crossed the Pacific using nothing but stars and swells and instinct. When metal workers used darkness to see more clearly. When the Maya made offerings to bring the sun back from the underworld, and the sun every single morning kept its end of the bargain. The night was not empty, The night was full. It was a different world governed by different rules requiring different skills yielding different kinds of meaning. But it was a world that human beings had mapped and mastered and made their own over hundreds of thousands of years. And we traded most of that away for electric light, which to be clear was absolutely worth it. Running water, antibiotics, the internet, cheese, and convenient slices. The modern world has real advantages, but there is something genuinely lost in how completely we have collapsed the distinction between day and night. How thoroughly we have defeated the dark. How little most of us now know about the sky above our heads or the natural rhythms of our own bodies when left to their own devices. The campfire circle, the shared stories in the dark, the biphasic sleep with its strange clear-headed middle hours, the stars as a map, as a calendar, as a sacred text, the waking in the deep middle of the night with nothing to do but exist. So next time you wake up at 3 in the morning and lie there inexplicably alert, thoughts moving clearly through your mind like water, do not panic. Do not reach for your phone. Do not start the anxiety spiral. Just lie there in the dark for a little while. Think whatever you need to think. Be awake the way your ancestors were awake. Quietly, completely in the middle of the night that has always been yours. You are not malfunctioning. You are remembering.